Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystify.
Welcome everybody to the Dave and Dharm Demystify show. And this week I don't have Dave, it's just my good self, but I have a very special guest, Briana Marbury. Welcome, Briana.
Thank you so much, Dharmesh. Thank you for having me.
And for our guest, would you give us a little bit of background on yourself and the company that you work for?
Sure. As you said, my name is Briana Marbury. I am the CEO of the Interledger Foundation, and I have been working in this space for about 6 years now. My background is in accounting and finance. I started working with the Interledger Protocol on payments. A lot of people conflate accounting and finance with payments. And for those of us in this world, we know those are two completely separate and different things. And so my work started in this space when I started with the Interledger Foundation back in 2020. So we were a foundation born during the pandemic. I think I did not meet any of my coworkers for at least a year after we started. Yeah, so it was no in-person, everything was shut down. So a little bit about the Interledger Foundation and the Interledger Protocol. The foundation was started 6 years ago to be stewards of the Interledger Protocol, which is a currency agnostic payments network that allows for easier transfer of money from one rail to another. Just like you have the internet, you have Interledger, so it connects ledgers together to send payments a lot faster and less expensive.
I mean, this sounds like something that should have been around since the beginning of the internet.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
why hasn't it been around since the beginning of the internet?
That's a very interesting question, because if you look at Explorer 2, it was built with payments in mind when the internet was created. That was built as an area of the internet yet to be developed. And since then, it's been, 20, 30 years, and we still have not been able to get standardization across different platforms for payments on the internet to be natively embedded.
So how are you solving that problem? Because this requires collaboration with banks across the globe. And that's been the problem all along. That's why we have kind of networks like SWIFT and stuff like that.
Well, I wouldn't say us alone, we're not solving the problem. We're working to help try to solve the problem along with different banks and organizations. One thing that I had to learn coming into this work, because I said the same thing. Why doesn't this exist yet? This is great. I don't understand why this hasn't taken off yet. And I quickly learned that you can have the best technology ever, but if you don't have the buy-in from the regulators, the policymakers, then it's going to be a long road. And so that's what we have started to focus on at the Interledger Foundation, is building relationships with regulators and policymakers so that they understand what it is that we're doing and trying to achieve with working with banks.
Where does this sit alongside, let's say, the existing rails? Let's, focus on maybe like SWIFT, right? SWIFT does this and connects up maybe 11,000 banks globally. And then on the flip side, we've got this new stuff around tokenization. Where does your stuff fit within those two kind of opposing landscapes?
So I would say that we sit in the middle. I would call us kind of an updated version of SWIFT, because SWIFT was created quite a while ago. And SWIFT can be a little slow and clunky, I would say. So the Interledger Protocol was built as an updated version of SWIFT. We can do up to 1 million transactions per second.
Wow. Did you say 1 million?
1 million, yes. 1 million transactions per second.
Wow. That's like almost 100 times MasterCard or something.
Yes. And so right now, what we're trying to do, we're not necessarily trying to replace Swift, but we're trying to integrate and work with organizations like Swift and the different tokenizations. One interesting thing about the protocol is that we are currency agnostic, meaning we can work with fiat or we can work with any type of asset, stablecoin, cryptocurrency. It just depends on the peering relationship that you have. So say, for instance, a community bank over here wants to transact with bank B or a digital wallet, and they just have to have an understanding of what assets it is that they want to transfer and commit to with each other. And so that's how the Interledger protocol works. So we're the rails that sit in the middle. We're not a platform. We're not a central hub. We're just the rails that the money travels on.
Okay. I mean, the network you use is the internet.
The network that we use, yes, is the internet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I say that because obviously with a banking background in the good old days, we just sent everything across the copper wires and the telecoms networks. And when I tell people that in the early days of, I guess, technology before the 80s, banks used to have telecoms departments, which were bigger than the IT departments. And people didn't believe me. I'm like, yeah, how do you think we connected the branches? But our show, the Demystify show, can you demystify how this all works? Is that something you can put in so that, a non-technical person could understand?
It's so funny because working in this space for so long, I came in as not a technical person, but the longer that you're around it, what you're explaining may seem very technical to you, but then you talk to the layperson, they're like, what are you talking about? So, okay, I will try my best. So one example that I try to use for people to understand easily is based in the US. Where are you based, Dharmesh?
I'm based in the UK.
Okay, you're based in the UK. And what are some of the payment apps that you have? Like in the US, we have Cash App, we have Venmo, Zelle. You probably have Zelle, right?
No, I use PayPal.
Okay, PayPal.
Sometimes I use open banking.
Okay.
And then obviously I use my bank app to do transfers.
Yeah. So say, for instance, I have Cash App in the US. You have PayPal. We go to dinner and we want to split the dinner, but I can't pay you because I don't have PayPal. However, if both of the apps were Interledger enabled and had Interledger on their rails, I would not need to download your app in order to pay you. So all of the apps that are on the Interledger network are interconnected. So it allows for interoperability between the apps, between the banks, and it just allows for a freer and easier way to transfer money.
Wow.
Yes.
So how many apps do you have on your network?
So that is the question. Right now, we have a couple of different projects. The apps that we don't have any apps that I've named, but ideally, that is how the protocol will work. So one of our big projects that we're doing right now is based in Mexico, and it's called the People's Clearinghouse. And a lot of people don't understand. You understand this since you worked in banking. Everyone just assumes that banks are connected to each other. And that is not the case, as we know. And so over in Mexico, there's a lot of rural banks that serve communities that people live in, rural communities. And these rural community banks are not connected to each other. So what PCH and what's called AMUX is doing is connecting those rural banks to each other and then connecting those rural banks to the Central Bank of Mexico. The next step is to connect that to a partner in the US, a banking partner that's located in the US. So right now, where that project is, it's gone before the Central Bank of Mexico for approval. And the next step is to connect cross-border to a banking partner in the US. We also have another grantee who's working with people in, say, migrant workers here in the US. And those migrant workers send a lot of remittances home. So we're trying to figure out, how do we get those remittances that are sent home to be reduced in price? Because depending on where you send money to, it could be up to 20% that they charge you for the remittance cost. That is another project that we're working on. The apps are yet to come. That's visionary for me, with all the apps being interconnected. But right now, we're trying to solve some real financial inclusion, financial access issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the UK. We kind of take it for granted that the banks are connected. I was explaining to my wife the complexities and the variations of the payments, and she was blown away by this whole thing of, oh, so not all of the banks are connected to the central bank, which means that my instruction goes to another bank, then to the central bank, then to another settlement bank for the payee's bank. And I'm like, yes, that's how it works. And when it goes international, it's kind of like that, but possibly even twice as long, because the correspondent bank might have several connections as well. But what she realized was that, wow, that's going to, everyone's going to want some money for that. That's why it's so expensive. And I'm like, yes, we get it now. And that's why it takes so long. I mean, I think this is a massively important issue that you're solving, especially for those kind of disconnected banks. How are you going to be able to raise your profile? Because I mean, this is massively important. It should have been there in the early days of the web, right? So I can't see the banks driving it. So how are you going to get your scale?
Well, the large banks are not driving it, no. But the smaller community banks who are the people who we're trying to make the impact with, they do want it. And so the issue that the smaller community banks have is that they don't have the updated infrastructure to be able to pull this off. So even though they want it, they're not able to achieve it. So one of the things that we do, there's a few things how we're tackling this. One is education. Two is that we provide grants and resources to be able to get the community banks the information that they need, the infrastructure that they need to build. And part of those resources includes engineering resources to help update their systems. And thinking about this, taking a big step back, we also think about who are the next engineers, who are the next people that are coming along to make this a reality. So we have a lot of university programs right now that are going on for entrepreneurs, for engineering students. We work with the University of Cape Town. We're doing research projects with the University of Oxford, with Stanford. So we're trying to tackle this from a lot of different angles to raise our profile, understand that the Interledger Foundation is here to steward this, not just for the Interledger Protocol itself, but for open payments as well. So our biggest mission is just to increase access to the world's most vulnerable people.
Great. And so you talked about this being a protocol. So a bank, let's say, wants to take part. What do they actually have to do? Do they write some code using your protocol?
So their tech teams work with our tech team. We have an integration team that will help them to be able to integrate pieces of the Interledger protocol into their system. Because this is open source, when we first started, we thought that, oh, well, if we make it open source, people will just come and contribute. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And so what we did was we built something called Rafiki, Riza. It's basically, my engineering team they'll get me when I say it's plug and play. No, it's not plug and play. So I like to say that it's a lot easier to connect to the protocol than it was 6 years ago. So whereas it might take, for instance, 6 months to do something, once you have all the paperwork in order, it could take just a couple of weeks to connect with the protocol once you're ready to get up and going, if you have a robust engineering team.
So essentially, there's an open source piece of software that they install on their servers, and then they integrate it with their payments middleware, let's say, through some APIs. And then this software knows. So talk me through that scenario of me wanting to give you some money, the instruction goes to my bank. Let's say they're using your software. They then say, I'm sending this message on this using the protocol to make this payment to this specific bank in America.
Yes.
Right. So does that mean that how does their computer know where the other bank's computer is?
So you're given a payment pointer. Each account is given a payment pointer. And you say, okay, I want to send $100 to Dharmesh. It's almost like the cash sign Dharmesh.iop. That's your payment pointer. And so it will say, okay, you want to send $100 to Dharmesh. This is how much, and it goes out and it shoots out to the different nodes and it gets different quotes about how much that will cost. So there is a reason for the different nodes to be able to give you the lowest cost. It's an opportunity for them to give you the lowest cost to send, because if it's too expensive, then, you're not going to choose that rate. So you can say, okay, I want to send, it costs me 10 cents to send that to Dharmesh. And that message goes out with an encrypted key that only you can be able to open and answer. And so, yeah, that's the way it works. Say, for instance, if I had $100 and I wanted to send 100 pounds to you, it would say, okay, this is what the currency conversion is. And it does the currency conversion for you as well.
So then it's really up to my bank. If I'm sending you the money, my bank has to display the screens to say, oh, look, this is what we found out in terms of the fees. Are you happy with this one? Or can the bank present a choice to say that I've got 3 offers to send your money?
Exactly. And I will say that quoting process happens within milliseconds. I'm describing it, but when it goes the ping there and back, it happens within milliseconds.
Wow. This is so cool. I can't believe I've not come across it before.
Yeah, especially since you have worked in this space for so very
40
long.
years.
Wow.
I literally I started off as a mainframe developer. Then I was involved in...
When you say mainframe, you mean like the big computers
COBOL.
that used to take up the whole room? Oh, wow.
You know the language that people moan about, COBOL? I used to be a COBOL developer on those mainframes. And that was in the late 80s. And then I was involved in putting PCs into the branches for the very first time in the early 90s.
Amazing. You've had quite a career.
Yeah, but it's mainly been on the kind of pure banking side of things. So not necessarily on the payment side of things. But recently I've been doing a lot of, well, I say recently, it's been a couple of years now. I've been spending a bit more time actually trying to understand payments, because I was one of those guys that didn't assume that money went from one bank to the next. Now I say that a little bit flippantly. I kind of knew, but I just didn't know all the nuances of the full chain that could occur. And then how messy the messaging is on Swift and stuff like that. But I needed to understand it before I was trying to really research tokenization. And now I see very clearly your role versus like the existing, which doesn't do what you do, and then the new world, which is trying to do a bit of what you do, but not, it's very commercial and very, I guess, fragmented at the moment, that whole tokenization space, which is kind of interesting. So how are you funded as a non-profit organization and achieving to create such?
The co-creator of this protocol is Stefan Thomas. He basically directed a large donation initially of the equivalent of $100 million.
Wow.
And yeah, in XRP at the time, which has been mostly liquidated. And so that was our initial tranche of funding. As you know, we've been open 6 years, and it costs a lot to be able to run worldwide programs. We have people based all over the world. And what we found is that people are really interested in participating in our programs. So in order to keep operations going, we're doing fundraising for people who want to participate in our projects, people who want to contribute to the research, people who want to contribute to our education programs that we're funding. We have some great programs that's going on, even a PhD level and master's level programs around open payments at some of the universities. So that's how we have our funding. We were a different space than what you see a lot of nonprofits, early nonprofits that are in. We have been very fortunate.
Wow. I am truly gobsmacked. So, but I can imagine if I had 100 million to give away, this is the kind of thing that can have a massive impact globally. And as you say, by reducing the cost and also creating a trusted network, then it will play to rural farmers, etc. And I read some interesting research by Costa Herrick, I think his name is.
Yes, Costa with the Gates Foundation.
With the Gates Foundation, yes, exactly. And what he was saying is that basically, if you put someone in a banking system, they're basically going to get out of poverty sooner than if they were just holding their cash.
Did you know that was one of the chief architects of SWIFT?
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. Costa used to be on our board. And so now he's slowed down, but I know Costa very well. He is a delightful human being. So
yeah, I mean, yes, he is indeed. And I mean, just on that then, how does this, because what I'm hearing is some similarity to the work that he was doing in the Gates Foundation.
Yes, it's very similar. So one of the projects that Costa started was the Mojaloop Foundation.
That's it, Mojaloop, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know, and we're working to change, is that the Mojaloop Foundation hired Stefan, who is the co-creator of Interledger, before Interledger started. So they hire Stefan, and that is like the first iteration of the Interledger Protocol. So pieces of what Mojaloop builds is the original like ILP of Interledger Protocol version 1.
Okay. I mean, sometimes it's better to have a second run at something.
Yeah.
And this sounds like, oh, I've seen the challenges before. I know what the problem is. Now I would do it this way.
Yes. I'm actually a board member of the Mojaloop Foundation.
Oh, right. Okay. So does that carry on running still? And you're working together? Are you collaborating?
So the main issue is that the messaging system that they used, and we're now on ILP version 4, they're not compatible as it is. So we've been trying to work together to make sure that the messaging layer of the protocol is they're able to speak with one another. So that's been an ongoing project that's had its starts and stops because, priorities shift and change. But that is one thing that we are continuously working on.
So what kind of challenges do you have now remaining? I'm guessing it's just kind of like getting out there and getting the message across. Is that?
Yes, getting the message across, and also part of getting the messaging across is connecting with regulators and policymakers, like I was saying earlier, to get them to understand what the technology is and how it works. It's not the piece of technology is very complex, and it's really hard for regulators to understand. So that is what we've been trying to do, put it in layperson's terms so that they understand what it is.
And which regulators are you kind of focused on?
Wherever we work. So right now we're doing some work in the US. So we're trying to work with the US Fed around some of our programs and work with the CDFIs, the regulators in Mexico with our work with PCH. Recently, we have kind of branched out into Colombia, another area that we're working in, and in South Africa as well.
Okay. And do you get much? I guess one of the things that this does also for a small bank is it allows them to play in a space that we're literally limited to some of the bigger banks, right?
Yes. So that is definitely the goal, to give the smaller banks who are servicing the communities that we're trying to reach more access, more financial tools, more services that they can offer, such as lending, et cetera. So we're trying to get them access to some of the bigger players.
Great. And like, what's your goal? What's your vision for all of this stuff? And give us a roadmap to your vision.
Well, my vision is that I would used to say that we'd be a household name. Everyone knows Interledger, but realistically, that we'd be a household name among bankers and people like you who say, like, this is great, I've never heard of it. I want us to become a known player in the space, not just to have name recognition, but being known to make this revolutionary and impactful for people who need it the most. And known for connecting banks. Interoperability is our game. Interledger is known for creating mass interoperability among banks.
I mean, this is a bit of it's kind of like a bit of a hidden gem, really. And I'm amazed that it's been created. What it reminds me a little bit, it's like Bitcoin. I'm not comparing this to Bitcoin, but when I first went to Bitcoin and how it works, and I'm like, whoa, hold on one sec. The whole of banking works on this principle that I have this ledger here and another ledger here, and the updates have to happen at the same time. And then there's trails of ledgers everywhere. But now this thing is like fundamentally rethought it and said that there's just going to be one ledger. So everyone that's on this network has the one ledger to update, but they can see everything. I'm like, it's reinventing money almost. That was like Bitcoin. But essentially, you're reinventing the payments network in effect.
Yes,
right?
I'd say the modern way to send payments.
Wow. Well, you have a fan over here.
Thank you.
So do you see any changes for, I guess, the new customer as well? And the new customer is obviously these software agents. When I think about your 1 million transactions per second, I can't see a payments network at the moment that could do anything similar. There's all this talk about software agents acting on behalf of us. And with tokenization, I've written about it recently that, look, with tokenization, we just need to rethink everything. Like, why do I get paid monthly? Why do I pay for my utilities in advance? Can we get rid of payday loans? Of course we can if we got paid on a daily basis rather than at the end of the month, right? So some of those things are going to be enabled by software agents that are working in the background, and also money that moves more freely. Is this part of your picture as well? Is that you're enabling not just only for like humans and smaller banks, but for software agents?
I think that there's a space for software agents, definitely. But I think that there needs to be guardrails around it. We've all heard the stories of an AI agent acting independently, so to speak, and making some decisions that were unwanted. So I definitely think that there is a space for that. And what's really interesting, you talk about payday loans and getting paid by the day. This is more time than we have to talk about, but there's another aspect of the protocol that enables you to pay streaming payments. So it doesn't have to be static payments as well. It allows for the streaming of payments. And that's another use case that we've been looking at using the protocol for. It's called web monetization, but also in payday and in getting paychecks based on how long you work.
I'm fascinated by this, but so the streaming payment, give me a kind of a use case for it.
So say, for instance, if you want to go to a website and access something, instead of having a subscription, you can pay by the time you spend on the actual website. So I don't have to pay $10 a month to access, dharmesh.org. I just want this one article and I want to read it. So you can just stream as you view. Or let's say, for instance, I just want to pay one article. Instead of coming across paywalls, etc., I just have it embedded natively into the browser. I can say, click, I want to pay 50 cents for this, and it streams that to you. It's a very, very powerful piece of software that has many different use cases that's available. And the best thing about it is it's all open source. So people who want to build on this and create use cases out of it, it's there for you to build on.
I guess with my banking hat on, in the past, something like this wasn't possible.
No, take your banking hat off, Dharmesh.
I am rapidly starting to do that. But what I'm trying to imagine is, I guess that if I have a legacy banking system, it can't handle 1 million transactions per second. So the idea of these constant debits going into an account, it's not going to be able to handle that.
So one thing that we do is we separate the transaction from the settlement.
Okay. So you're in effect streaming this, and then it settles later on. Let's say when you move off the website, let's say.
Exactly.
Okay. Very clever. So that takes the weight off the banking system. So in effect, you have a subledger for streaming. Sorry, I'm a techie by background, so I'm always trying to work it out. So how are they doing that?
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. I mean, look, this has been and as you say, this topic alone, I could probably spend another half an hour on. But is there anything that you'd like to say to the audience? And it is a global audience with FinTech Futures. So is there anything that you'd like to say to our banks and fintechs before we go?
Yeah, please reach out to us. We would love to work with you. Check out all of our documentation. It's all open to the public. We work in the open. And yeah, you probably will hear from us in the coming months because we want to work with you. So please reach out. Interledger.org.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Briana. That was a really fun conversation. I certainly learned a lot, and truly am amazed by the great work that you're doing. So well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you for tuning in to Dave and Dharm Demystify. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tune in next time as we take another topic and demystify it.